Alright, so we're gonna move towards getting Tongue and Groove Cedar up here. So we scraped off the foam in the high spots, and it's hard to sort of figure out the sort of starting point because, again, you're dealing with a bus where things are round and not necessarily square, and so can't obviously start down below here. So I snapped a line and tried to come right at the top edge of these outlet boxes, and hopefully, at least it's a line, it's straight. I'm not sure how straight it is with the bus, but I'll probably snap another line in another spot just to sort of see where I am. But I'm using 1.5 inch finish nails, and I think I'm gonna face nail it because the tongue on the stuff is so thin. Traditionally with Tongue and Groove, you'd sort of nail through the tongue so you can't see it. I don't think that's gonna hold to this, and so if it looks, if I really hate the way it looks, I'll go back and I'll put some wood putty over all the holes, or maybe Julie will hate the look of it and she'll do it and I won't have to, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Good morning, friends. Day 2 of working on the ceiling of the bus, I suppose. Maybe it's kind of technically day 3 if you kind of take into factor kind of scraping away the insulation. But so yesterday got kind of in a zone, just stopped going. I had my daughter Katie helping me out, so I didn't really stop to explain a whole lot. So let me take you kind of backwards now through some of the process and some of the steps just to help explain what we're doing and why. Not that it's always right for sure, but. So I ended up going with this Pacific knotty cedar planking, which I like the looks of for sure. I was originally going to go with a pine, just because it was cheaper really. You know, I love the look of the cedar, but pine was cheaper, but just kind of the way things worked out, trying to order it and X, Y, and Z, and can you get this, and this was in the store, and I ended up getting it for a little bit cheaper than I got the pine, so than I would have gotten the pine. So it's Tongue and Groove. Which is helpful because it helps locks together so it doesn't bow back and forth and leave some gaps. But the tongues are actually they're pretty fragile, they're pretty small, they're pretty skinny. So the cedar is 5/16 of an inch, which is good because you don't have a whole lot of headroom in there. You know, at 5'7", I'm a towering giant and I don't want to hit my head in the ceiling, but I didn't really want to spend the money, and I don't really have the metal skills for a roof raise, so this is kind of the option we had. It's got Tongue and Groove, which I've noticed that you know, it's good to help locks in the system. It doesn't snap together super easy, you know, especially if you've got any indentations in the ceiling and irregularities. It makes it tough. Also, with like thicker 3/4 inch plywood, like a lot of times a 3/4 inch Tongue and Groove, it's thick and stiff enough that it'll create its own shape. But this stuff is so thin it conforms to everything, which isn't necessarily bad, but if you've got like a wavy ceiling, this is definitely going to mirror those waves, and where a thicker Tongue and Groove may sort of smooth those out. So, you know, just be aware of that when you use it. It says to treat both sides before you put it up, which makes sense. You know, if you only treat one side and then, you know, less humidity gets absorbed into that, and then the other, it's going to warp and move around on you. So we sprayed it with some, you know, just some basic poly, some acrylic. I don't really necessarily like the way this looks. It looks kind of plasticky to me because, well, it's probably kind of a plasticky type of thing. But on the back side, no one's going to see it anyway. And probably should have put 2 coats on it. I've sprayed it because it's so much faster. And again, I highly encourage, like, if you've got a compressor, you know, get an inexpensive sprayer because it just saves you so much time. It's worth it. You know, I think you can get a decent one for like 30 bucks, and it'll save you hours and hours of time. So Katie and I kind of been spraying it. I probably should have put 2 coats on it, but I kind of let my impatience get to me and just kind of want to get going on it. So, you know, take that under advisement. I guess I'll let you know how it turns out as we go. So yeah, we spray it, and the other thing about that acrylic, it dries super fast, which is awesome. So within, like, especially outside, and finally we got some decent weather here in the Northeast, and you know, after 20 minutes, really, you know, especially if you spray it down even, it's dry and ready to go. So one key to tongue and groove is getting that first course on super straight, and I use a chalk line to snap a line along the top of my outlet boxes as a reference point and get that first course in. This second course was super tricky. It just did, I don't know if it was the angle or the curve, but it just didn't, tongues didn't want to lock in, so I had to wrestle with that for quite a bit. Then we just kind of went forward. Had some problems with my nail gun jamming too, which was frustrating. But as we came up to the wires, I used a hole saw. That way I could pull the wires off to the side, you know, out of the hole, not worry about cutting them, drill the hole, then pull the wires back through. So I didn't get all the sealing done and forget that I knew that. So I just face nailed them all, and if I really don't like those, then I'll go back and cover them up with some wood putty, but they don't look actually so bad. So because of that tongue nailing strategy, most of the time you put it up this piece and you work your way driving your pieces onto the tongue, so the tongue's always exposed. If you're going to face nail it, I'm not sure if it matters a whole lot. But as you come down here and make that corner, so you're coming down to the wall and you want to go around the other side. So one thing you can do is cut a spline. You know, basically in this case it would be a very tiny one. You know, maybe like a 3/32. Where are we here? Cut a spline. Cut a spline to put in there, like a 32 of an inch that kind of sticks out, and then you can use that as the new tongue and reverse your direction, so you can still go this way and then still cut into the spline. Because I'm face nailing it, I just turned around and kind of went this way, drove the tongue in that way, and worked my way back towards the wall. Alright, so this might be obvious to some, might not be obvious to others, but whenever you have your joints, they should fall on one of your furring strips, because if they flop out in here, they'll never match up. So seems obvious, maybe, but maybe not. This is sometimes the tricky part. You can see that. Get up here to wrestle in the tongue in the groove. Sometimes I can slide in that end, get started. And the joints right here, the tongues there where they line up, slightly different because of the irregularities. It just gets tricky. And once you get a semi lined up, we got a little block scrap piece. Fit that in. Use some gentle persuading. You don't want
want to hammer directly on the tongue, or obviously you'll break it. Even that sometimes. But yeah, you get some. I guess that's in. I guess that's as far as it's gonna go. Found sometimes too, it's almost impossible to get the whole board locked in at once. So start one. It looks like it's definitely going to go. Start at one end, get that part, and then work your way down. And then sometimes even press in the middle if you got a bow. So again, it's not the easiest stuff to work with for sure. All right, we got an interesting challenge here where you need to go around the skylight, which isn't necessarily a huge challenge in itself, so to speak, but right on that wire. Better make sure I get all that stuff taken care of before. So the challenge becomes, there's nothing to line to. How do you keep this straight? Because I can see already that I'm off right there. So since I got nothing dictating a straight line down there, because I stopped, kind of terminated at the skylight here, I put a screw, you could do a nail too, but right there at the edge of this board, I'm going to take my chalk line, hook it to that, and then align the edge of that board. And I started back here so I can kind of get some momentum with that straight line. And we'll go all the way down here and try to be as straight as we can. Lining up with that board, which, God, looks like it's over there a ways. Ah! That's really what I didn't want to do. I got blue chalk everywhere. I get hung up on that insulation. That looks pretty straight though. Now I've got a line that I can use to make sure that falls in the right spot. Oh, blue chalk on my brand new ceiling. Jeez. Tragedy. So now I can put this up. I'm gonna have to mark this out. We're gonna cut around the skylight anyway. I'm gonna cut that thing. It's a pain. I gotta get rid of the wires too. Holy cow, I got so much to do. I gotta organize myself before I really do this right. Alright, get on there. So then I mark. Just as a general rule, I find scribing things a whole lot more accurate than measuring. Draw it right on there and then cut it. Alright, so that's gonna go up there like that. This is gonna line up on that line like that. First I got a bow in this one I'm trying to get out, and it's really hard. Some of the normal tricks you would use with tongue and groove, like you could take a nail and pound it in at an angle in the tongue, and then you can pound the nail and that will push it over a little bit. But we can't do it with these tongues. So another trick you can try, I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but I got my piece of scrap blocking in there, and I got a chisel. You gotta find sort of the right distance so that you can drive that chisel in behind it. You don't have a ton of room to work, and then pry that. Oops, chisel didn't go in far enough. If you go too far, we built this cabinet here. That's kind of pushing it. Oh, there we go. Quick, where's that nail gun? It's a handy trick. Alright, so I'm out of material, which is pretty much spot on. I didn't have enough to do the back garage, which I kind of thought about anyway, and I didn't really want to waste some of the good stuff. I think I'll just put some 1/4-inch plywood up there, because it doesn't need to be pretty. And then the back of the one closet there I didn't have quite enough for. So the bus is 30 feet long, 7.5 feet wide, and I went through 12 of those packages. And again, really minimize the waste, pretty much just kind of pieces like that, so it'll make great kindling next winter. So now I got a nail punch, some of the nails didn't set all the way, and I'm gonna smooth those over, and then then sand a couple of the rough spots, and then I'm gonna put a coat of shellac on it, followed by some poly. Cleaned up as best I could, swept, vacuumed again. That the shavings, that insulation gets everywhere, and then the static electricity, it's hard to get it out, but I did the best I could. So now I'm going to spray a couple coats of shellac actually on the ceiling, and I love shellac. So you can go with like an oil base. And I love oil-based finishes because they bring out the luster of the grain. I think I just love the warmth and the tone. It really makes the grain pop. And the water-based polys just don't seem to do that. The problem with oils is they're really a pain to clean up. You have to use harsh chemicals and solvents, acetone, paint thinner, and things like that to clean up. And also they take a long time to dry. But I find that shellac has that sort of oil color to it, or that luster, that resonance of it that I really like, and it's super easy to clean up. Some denatured alcohol or ammonia, and you're all done. And it dries super fast. Like today, it's a pretty dry day. It's almost 70. It'll be dry in 20 minutes, and you can put a couple coats on. So the problem that I find with shellac is it doesn't handle water particularly well. It gets sort of this milky texture if it gets wet. So really try to get the best of both worlds. What I'll do is I'll put on a couple of coats of shellac that will go on pretty fast, so I'm going to spray it, and then I'll put probably 1 or 2 coats of poly on top of that. So you still kind of get that little bit of the pastiness of that water-based poly, but you still get the nice grain pop out of it. So that's kind of what I've come to like over the years. So let's get spraying. Alright, that's with 1 coat. It's been about 20 minutes, almost dry. Some of the places where I had it on kind of thick isn't quite dry yet. Tough for me to be super regular, but I'm going to wait a couple more minutes and then put put another coat on. Boy, look at the way that grain pops. Coat number 2. Hey, so that's it, done. Put 4 coats of poly over the top of the shellac, just because it goes on so thin, and with the spray gun it goes on so fast anyway. So I just want to make sure it gets even, and especially worry with condensation in buses in general. Just wanted to give it as much protection as I could. So I suppose I could keep going, but I think probably 4 is enough. But that went pretty fast. But I really excited. I love the way the shellac brings out the grain, and then you get that poly over the top to protect it from moisture. So hope this was helpful if you guys are putting in any tongue and groove. I did like the cedar. Again, I think it's beautiful. I did find it a little fussy putting in. Last fall I actually did a tiny home for somebody, and did their top, the inside was all 3/4 tongue and groove, and did that in a day. And this actually took a lot longer. It took me 2 days to do it because it's so fussy trying to manipulate in the shape, and then you can't. Some of the tricks you can use, you just can't do it with this stuff because it's so thin, it's fragile. So it's fussy, but I did certainly like the look of it, the way it came out, and I like not giving up. I mean, I gained like a 1/2 inch of headroom that I would have lost with more. With a thicker material, thicker stock. So that's it. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description if you want to check it out. And again, thanks for joining in. I certainly appreciate it. Leave me any comments, suggestions, anything you want. Smash that like button if it's been helpful. Subscribe if you haven't. Thanks a lot, friends. I really appreciate everybody stopping in and checking in on me. I appreciate your support, and I will see you next time.